Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your commitment to America's children. And thank you for your very straightforward answer to Senator Bennett's question regarding the efficacy of arming our teachers. It won't surprise you to know that I disagree with Senator Alexander with respect to the ability that the Secretary has to allow Title IV funds to be used to arm teachers. There is, in fact, in Title IV, a specific permissive use of those funds for violence prevention. And in that section of the statute, it allows for those funds to be used under Title IV for violence prevention so long as they are used to build weapons-free schools. That, to me, would suggest that it was the clear intent of those that wrote the bill on this committee to deny the use of those funds to arm our teachers. Notwithstanding, as Senator Alexander notes, that there are certainly armed security officers in these schools, as has been the practice for a long time. And I frankly wish that we had the Secretary of Education here, or at least a representative of the Secretary of Education, so we could have a conversation about how and why they are interpreting that statute in the way that they are. I look forward to continuing that discussion. I only have one additional question on this topic, and I think I can probably guess the answer given your response to Senator Bennett's question, but are any of you aware of any data that suggests arming our teachers makes our schools safer?
I'm not aware of any data.
I'm not aware of it either.
Nor am I. I'm not aware of it.
Mr. Jeffries, you work with a lot of schools that are located in areas where there are high rates of gun violence. Is the problem in those neighborhoods and in the places around those schools that there aren't enough guns?
Absolutely not, Senator. Absolutely not.
I'll put this topic to bed because I like the place that we are on this panel, and I appreciate your answers to the question. I also agree with Senator Murray's concerns around the way in which this administration is failing to enforce many of the accountability metrics. I don't think we would have written 4 different subgroups. I know we wouldn't have written 4 different subgroups into the accountability title in the law if we didn't expect schools to actually measure and report on all 4 of those subgroup categories. But we also required that to the extent that whether in the subgroups or in the schools writ large, schools aren't meeting the expectations that you set, that you will provide for evidence-based strategies to turn those schools around. One of the other concerns that we have is that that Secretary DeVos has not required that states show that they are investing in evidence-based measures. And that was a really important phrase in that law, to make sure that you're not just repainting the walls in the school and claiming that it's an intervention, that you are actually using what works to try to turn around performance for disabled kids or for minority kids or for English language learners. So let me just leave this as the last question. What does evidence-based interventions mean to you as school chiefs? What do you use to draw upon to make sure that you aren't just doing something that sounds good, you're actually doing something that works when you're trying to serve these populations of kids?
We like to experiment with something, pilot a program, for example, and keep the data to show that it's making a difference. It's reducing the gap between our groups. We've also transformed our department and have a student support team that truly concentrates on just such supports, and we're there providing that to go out to schools. I also meet with each superintendent from our districts and look at subgroup data and ask about what they're doing for the various subgroups, and I do that several times a year.
Can I press you on that for a moment? Because you said that you like to experiment, but wouldn't the language of the statute, which requires you to use evidence-based interventions, mean that you are not free to experiment? You actually have to use interventions that have proof of concept already.
Correct, and then we pilot them in certain districts and follow up. If it works, then we hopefully have tried them in districts that are diverse within the state, and we can actually then make statements. This is a very worthwhile effort. We'd like to see you implement it in your school. We do have local control, but we also have a menu of evidence-based practices to recommend.
10 seconds, Mr. Bloomquist.
Yeah, so thanks. We put something in that we call an evidence-based analysis in our school improvement process, and we're going to include that as part of our ongoing school improvement and accreditation process in addition to the accountability side. So that's our approach.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Spearman, did you want to answer his question?
Well, for us, it means that we don't just say, tell us how you're going to fix yourself anymore. There are strings attached to the funding, and we do have, in fact, we're finding that a very concrete research-based system for most of these school districts is very simple, that we need to tell them this is how you need to do it.
Thank you, Senator Murphy. Senator Cassidy.